to the cloud. Hi, everyone. My name is Andra Annette. I am owner and founder of CEO of Pounds to Go. I am an author, speaker, and I am a leaky gut expert, and I help women become confident and energized in their body. They lose weight sustainably, and I am with these women that are just amazing, and I want to give them the opportunity to share more about themselves. So I'm going to introduce them, and they're going to tell you a little bit more about what they do. Okay, Kyla, hello, how are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Can you tell me a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the owner and founder of Legacy Women Affiliates, where we build and support legacy women. And I also advocate against domestic violence and for mental health awareness. I am an international best-selling author, speaker, teacher, and a Navy veteran.
Oh, that's amazing. CJ, how are you today, CJ boy?
I'm good. How about you?
Good.
Okay, I am CJ Boyd. I am a women's empowerment mentor, an international best-selling author and speaker, and founder of Queen by Design. And I help women uncover their limiting beliefs and self-sabotage patterns in order to release them, anchor in new patterns and beliefs, and then give themselves permission to be their absolute best version of themselves.
Amazing. Ashley?
Hi.
Hi,
Great.
sweetie.
Hi, so my name is Ashley. I am a best-selling author, mindset coach, and speaker. I help entrepreneurs to go from overwhelmed to thriving, so in that way they can reach their next level of success in their business by breaking through their limiting beliefs.
I love that. Hello, Martina. How are you today?
I'm great. Hi, I'm Martina Kwan. I'm a 3-time champion race car driver, a 2-time international best-selling author, Italian Emmy Award winner, the mom of 2 girls, and the CEO of DK Racing School and Daring to Be Different Coaching. And through my one-on-one group coaching and extreme confidence masterminds, I love to empower alpha women to become female alpha magnets so they can attract the man that they've always yearned for, going from aloneness to oneness.
Awesome. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, hello everyone. Hi, I'm Leslie Gaudet, and I am a self-care specialist for busy female entrepreneurs. I help my clients make self-care the #1 priority to support them in life and business so that they stay sharp, focused, and wake up with more energy and intention to tackle their daily activities with confidence. I'm also a wife of 27 years. I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm an international best-selling author.
Wonderful. So just to let everybody know what we're going to be doing, this is on stepping out of your comfort zone. And a lot of us have been in that place where we just didn't have enough confidence in ourselves, or we felt stuck and we were afraid to really step out of that comfort zone. So these ladies were gracious enough to get together with me today. And we're going to be talking about specific incidences in our life where we felt like we were called to move forward, and we were stuck in that place of comfort. So I'm going to go around, and these ladies are going to tell us a little bit about what that was like for them, where they were at that time in their life. And then at the end, we're going to circle back, and they're going to explain to you how they got through that, what was that final, okay, I could do this, and move on to something else. Okay, so we're going to start with Leslie. Again, I am Andra Annette. I'm sorry I messed up my own introduction, but we'll talk about that another time. That's my comfort zone. All right, Leslie, let's hear from you. What was a time in your life that you were really stuck in a place and you wanted something, or you were trying to get to that level and you just were stuck in that comfort zone? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I can really imagine it so vividly even today. It was quite a few years ago, and well, really my entire life I've been working in law in an industry which is really stressful. It's high pressure. And what I found for me was that the more that I wanted to make more money, that meant that I had to put in more time. It just seemed like the more that I wanted, the more I had to do in order to be able to get that. And what that was doing is my relationship with my husband was really not, there was not as much room or space for that. There wasn't enough room or space for me to have relationships with family, with friends, to be able to do things for myself, because I really felt stuck in a life where my life revolved around my job. And I didn't I didn't feel like there was any way out. And I started questioning, is there all that this is for me for life? Because I really was very miserable. I didn't feel that, I didn't feel like this was the life that I wanted to live anymore. You know, when you're younger, you go after your goals, but sometimes you don't realize that you're allowed to change and you can change your path. But for me, I was thinking, well, I want to change my path, but I had no idea of how to even go about that. And so I felt stuck and miserable and frustrated, and I really didn't know what to do. That's where I found myself.
I so identify with what you just said. So we're gonna move on to Martina, and then we're gonna come back and see how you broke through that, okay? So Martina, what about you, honey? When was the time that it was difficult for you? You felt stuck in that area?
Yeah, so again, thank you for having me. I think, you know, for women, I'm 57 now, but when I was in my 40s, I really felt very overwhelmed, pretty lonely and alone, taking care of everyone else's needs but my own. So the kids, my ex-husband, the business. So I just felt very overwhelmed with, as women, we're always focusing on other people's needs rather than our own. And so I felt really stuck in my late 40s. I had tried to make my marriage work from 2011 till 2016. And I found myself riding in the Dubai desert on horseback in the Arabian desert. And I remembered who Martina Kwan was. And I decided that I wanted to completely change my life. I decided to say enough is enough with my failing marriage. And I decided to become a race car driver at the age of 50. So that's what I did. And so I think one of the biggest lessons here is for any woman, any man who's sort of earlier in their career, you know, you can become whatever you want at any age. So anything's possible at any age. So in the past 7 years, I've become a 3-time champion race car driver, drove professionally, and I've started two different successful businesses. So anything's possible at any age if you believe in yourself.
Wow, I love that. It definitely takes that self-belief. It definitely does. Ashley, what about you, honey? Was there a time for you that was difficult?
Yeah, so since childhood, like I was always like that shy, timid girl, always trying to make everyone happy, being on my little tiptoes, right? Not really speaking my voice. When I had my daughter, I had the relationship with her father. And again, with that, I was trying everything to make it work, regardless if I knew it was bad. I was trying to make it work. I was deteriorating myself. Like I lost myself completely. And my main thing that made me feel like a failure was not keeping my family together. But mind you, that was actually a blessing in disguise after. But another thing leading with that too was my business, because I had all these great ideas, all these dreams, and I still have them. And I would like self-sabotage myself. I would take little steps. And then when I see progress happening, I fall back. And then those voices in the head, and then, you know, the family beside you, as much as they try to be supportive, but saying, how are you going to do this? That's like, you know, the small minimum chance of you making that happen compared to like all the people out there. So that was a really struggle challenge. It's all that inner mindset work, and it was like really holding me back.
I love that. I love that. I identify with all of you ladies on so many levels. It's amazing. Kyla, what about for you, sweetie?
So similarly to Ashley, I had noticed from childhood up until recently, maybe within the past, I guess, 5 years, that there was chaoses that were continuously popping up in my life. Chaoses with communicating with people, having like just regular relationships with people. And there were just things that were not going correctly. And so it took a lot for me to say, how do I fix this? Because if it's continuously happening, it's something that I'm doing. It's something within myself. And so I went through a lot of like really bad relationships with men, which is why I like to advocate against domestic violence and against the patterns in the women or the abused people that are allowing these things to happen in their lives. And so so it took a lot for me to finally be like, whatever it is about me, I will find it, I will figure it out. And I will fix it, because this will not continuously keep happening in my life.
I love that. I love what you're doing. CJ?
For me, it was a matter of the same thing. Growing up as a child, I was told, people like us just need to be happy with what we got, scramble for what you think you can get because, I was raised feeling like it came from the right side of the tracks, that my family didn't have money. I wore the same clothes to school every 3 days, that type of thing. And I was just always told I'd never amount to anything. I could never get out beyond what my last name was. And so I married. The first time I got married, I was in a relationship with an alcoholic abuser. I literally married my dad, which is really sad. Not literally, but you know what I mean? Someone just like my dad. And then I left that marriage with nothing but the clothes on my back. And then I got into another relationship, which, this man told me everything I thought I wanted to hear. And, he truly did love me, but I hadn't healed who I was. I didn't know how to love myself. So I did the same pattern for 21 years of our marriage, feeling like I was less than, that I was never going to amount to anything. No matter what I did, it would never be good enough. And so, my marriage imploded. And at the same time, my youngest son of 7 was leaving for the Air Force. And I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to be a mom 24/7. I don't have a clue who I am. I left my job and I was like, okay, I have no labels to describe who I am. And I just felt stuck, like I wasn't good enough, like nothing I'd ever done to that point showcased who I truly was. And I honestly, at 50, had no clue who I really was. So it took diving in deep and really figuring out, what does CJ as a woman want? Who is CJ as an individual human being, not the label of a wife or a mom or, an employee. So it took me finally saying, I'm in this marriage, I'm in this relationship, I've been a mom, I've taken care of everybody else. And now it's time for me to really hone in and figure out what I want, because this is the time of my life. Everybody says when you hit 50 and your kids go away, it's your time. And I was like devastated. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I think I cried for like 2 months when my son left for the Air Force, because I was like, I don't know who I am. I need to figure it out. And so that's when I dove into personal development, inner work, and started really uncovering those limiting beliefs and figuring out I'm worthy just because I'm a human being. It doesn't mean I don't need a label to tell me I'm worthy. I'm worthy because I'm alive and I'm here.
I love that. So I identify with every single one of your stories. So from the time very youngest memory, I never felt like I fit in. I always felt like I wasn't enough. We grew up poor, and my mother was a single family mom. So she always tried to give us the best, which for her meant moving to affluent neighborhoods where I felt less than even more, so I gravitated towards the bad people so that I could fit in, and I just always felt like something was missing inside of me, like there was a piece that just wasn't there, that there was something wrong with me. And I wound up in these crazy relationships. I was attracted to everything that was wrong for me. And like a lot of you ladies, I grew up one day, because it was about growing up and saying, okay, this is what it's at, and what am I going to do? Where I felt like it had to be me because I wasn't fitting in with them. It wasn't their problem. And I woke up one day, I had no idea where I was. I was in that bad marriage and who I was. But even after that marriage, I just was such a people pleaser my whole life because I wanted so much to fit in that I did whatever it took to feel like I was part of. And I never really knew what I enjoyed doing. What was Andra's story? What did Andra enjoy? So at 50, 45, 50, I woke up saying, okay, where do we go from now? I grew up hearing that you have to work hard to get what you want. So doing something I loved or something that was easy was just not something I thought about doing, like writing or things that I loved all those years, because I was told they weren't worth anything. So I identify with all of you ladies in on so many levels. So CJ, we're going to start with you and we're going to go back around. So what was that straw that broke the final camel's back?
The final straw was literally my son leaving for the Air Force, me telling my husband of 21 years that I wanted a divorce, me quitting my job and going, okay, I don't know who the fuck I am. I don't know where I'm headed from here, but I have this harebrained, wild ass idea in the back of my head that I want to own and operate a cafe. So I literally quit my job on a Friday, posted on Facebook that I was opening my cafe. And mind you, I had bought the building, I'd been paying on the building, I was laying all the groundwork, I was trying to figure it all out. And I posted on Facebook, I was opening Monday morning, 6 a.m. Every single one of my children and everyone in my family that knew me messaged me and go, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, I have to figure out who I am. I have to do this. I have to prove to myself that I can have something different than what I've always had. I have to prove to everybody else that I'm better than what they think I am and that I'm capable. Because my whole life, same thing. I tried to make everybody else happy. I got all the good grades. I got into the marriage. I had the 2.5 kids, well, 7 kids, but, did everything for everybody else. And I still felt like I was totally alone. I could be in a room full of all these people and I felt like I was destitute and alone. And so for me, it was opening the cafe and proving to myself. I was a one-woman show. I did not have any bank backing. I did not have a business plan. Well, I had a business plan, but I hadn't shared it with anybody else. And I just kind of flew by the seat of my pants going, okay, sink or swim, you have to do this. I knew in my head how much money, how many people I had to come through the door, how many sales I need to make to be able to keep the lights on and keep getting groceries and stuff. But I literally, while I was doing that, I had personal development, inner work stuff in my ear the whole time. And I was like, okay, I need to figure this out. And I was like working on my inner self and building my confidence. But as I was building the cafe, I was like, okay, you can do this. You are capable. It's possible for you to do something different. And fuck anybody else who doesn't believe you. And the one thing I remember most is I had a girl from high school come in and I'd been open for probably 16 months. And she came in and I was like, oh, wow, she's here. Yay. And I sat her down and she's like, looked around. She goes, well, it took you long enough, but you finally made something of yourself. And I was like, I was just like taken aback. And I'm like, there is the door. I don't need your bullshit anymore. I put up with it my whole entire life going through school. And I don't need your money to prove my worth. And I don't need you to make me feel like you made me feel back in high school. So there's the door. And I kicked her out. And that was the most liberating thing ever in my life. And I was like, that was a defining moment for me. Like, I feel like I've arrived. I did it because I was able to stand up to the bully who I never could stand up my whole entire life. And, it's just a matter of doing it every day and waking up every single morning and saying, I got this. This is what I need to do. Being intentional about me making my business a success. And I'm not going to say I did it single-handedly because, I have 3 brothers and they help me with electricity and that kind of stuff, but nobody ever put any money into it. I had to make all the money to put back into it to keep it running. And it was the most amazing thing in my life and happy story because I did the personal growth and the inner work. I also reconnected with my husband. I invited him out for his birthday dinner and we've been together ever since because we were apart and I figured out who I was and I learned to love myself and demand love from myself for myself so that I could love him appropriately and also receive the love that he wanted to give me on the level that I needed. So, and we've been married ever since.
I love that. That's a beautiful story. Kyla, what about for you? What was that breaking point?
Well, for me, it started when I had my son. I knew that whatever wasn't correct in me, whatever, behavioral, whatever wasn't right, I did not want to pass that on to my son. And I did not want my son having to grow up the way that I did, having these, I just call them little chaoses. That's what I call them, little disagreements or whatever happens, like if you don't pay the bills, there's going to be a little chaos. So I knew that I did not want to pass that on to my son. I wanted my son to have the best opportunities, the best attitude, just the best of everything. And so at that point I started doing self-development, and it was making a big difference in my life, but I wasn't ready to take on a relationship. And that's exactly what I did. And it pretty much ruined my life. It took me from rock bottom. I had built a brand new house in 2021 and I was mentally doing the best that I had been doing in a really long time. I came out of the military in 2019, really not mentally okay and mentally stable. And so this was the first time that I was feeling back on my feet and I was doing so good. And I was really giving the best for me and my son. And I met a guy and I just really, I wasn't ready at that point. And I didn't know all the red flags. I wasn't ready. And so I let this guy in, and he ended up like completely ruining my whole life, like wrecking my house, like punching holes in the walls, caused me to wreck my vehicle. Like there was just so many bad things that happened, and he really ruined like almost every aspect of my life. And so that was the actual breaking point. Like, I cannot let this happen again, and I won't. And obviously I knew that I wasn't ready when all of that was happening. And so I am committed to making sure that that I make sure that I'm ready, and that I make sure that I find a good man in the future, not like anything that I've ever been with before, and being the best person I can be, and making sure that I pass that on to my son.
I love that. So we're two ladies into this discussion as far as their stories and what they did to overcome it. But I'm seeing a pattern of self-worth, that it's coming back to our self-worth. And that's why I really wanted to do this. I think that's so important, because I think there's so many people out there that just feel like they're not enough. And that breaks my heart, because like all of us, we've all walked around feeling like that, and they feel alone. And I think this is just really going to help so many people realize that it's not just them and they're not alone. So Ashley, what did you do?
Definitely, I would say my daughter too. When she was born, I looked at her. First of all, I was terrified of kids, and I had this baby. I was like, you know, with a manual, anyway. So when I looked at her though, and I was like, I need to change my life. And at that point, I put myself through college, but again, it was to make other people happy for me, doing what they wanted to do. But I wasn't happy. And just like a cat, I think with 9 lives, like I had like 9+ breaking points. I just started to become aware of these cycles. And at first I was blaming so many people because you did this to me, or I went through that, or, you know, things like that. And I started becoming self-aware, and it's like, it's not necessarily them, it's me inside. And, you know, one step after another step, I went through the therapy, I went to counseling. It wasn't helping as much, I found, but like once I really started to do that inner mindset work, I started to feel a complete change. I felt like I started breaking the chains. One of my good friends, and I'll always remember this, and she said, you are not going to find someone, or you're not going to live that life until you love yourself. And that was like a smack right in the face. And that's what it was. Like, I didn't love myself. I didn't feel worthy, plus all the things that I've been through in my life. But once I started opening more into those doors, I started to feel that things started changing, and still ongoing. Like, you still have that battle with your mindset, those limiting beliefs that can come up. They don't just wash away, but doing that inner mindset work daily and working on yourself really does help. And definitely has helped.
I agree. And it's a daily responsibility.
Yeah.
How about you, Leslie?
Yeah, so I'm listening to all of you, and just as Andra had said, I feel there's such a connection to everything that you've all experienced, and I can like relate to it so deeply. You know, one of the things that you mentioned, Ashley, was about people like saying to you, like, are you sure? Why are you doing this? Even you, CJC, and it's like having those people in our lives, like those safekeepers, like they want to keep us safe from making mistakes. So they think they're doing us a favor, but they're not really listening to us what we want. And then also too, about having that, Andra, when you said like you didn't feel like you fit in, like I remember growing up poor myself and figuring like I didn't belong with the crowd of people that I was surrounded with, which were all, you know, people who had money. They grew up in, you know, 2-parent homes. They were in single family in structures, like they were in houses. And I grew up in social housing. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I don't really deserve to be with those people. I need to be with the people just like me. So I actually specifically set out to do that, just to feel like I belonged somewhere, like where I really felt like I fit in. So I really wanted to bring awareness to that. So for me, what happened was, as I said, I've been in the industry of law for like 30 plus years. And 6 years ago, it started to come to a head where I wasn't feeling like myself. I really felt miserable. I thought my relationship was really non-existent. We didn't talk. We just had this relationship of sharing the same space, but I've never felt more lonely in sharing the same space with someone than I did at that time. And I recognized that if I didn't make changes to my life, that I don't know what my health would have done, like if I would have gotten sick because I just didn't feel like myself, or if my relationship would have lasted. And I turned to my husband and I said, look, we need to do something different. I said, I cannot go on like this with my life revolving around work. We have no relationship. I don't really have friends. We don't do anything because I don't feel like doing anything. I'm exhausted after my day, and I'm bringing too much work home. And so I said to him, we talked about moving from California to Las Vegas. Let's revisit that again. And that meant that I would have to start over a different way, whether that was quitting my job and finding a new one or finding something else to do. So I ended up, we were in talks about it, and we were deciding what we were going to do. And another year passed by. And in that year, we made the decision. We went to Las Vegas. I took a week off of work and we went in, and we looked, we found a place to live. So we made the decision to go. We found, got all of our ducks in a row in Las Vegas. And the following Monday I went into work and I gave them 2 weeks notice. And I was actually giving up the financial security. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew that if I didn't take back the one thing that was being robbed of me, which was my time, that I didn't know where my life was going to go. And so taking back my time, really, I wrote about it in the first book, Becoming an Unstoppable Woman, but I felt like taking back my time saved my life, because not only did it save my relationship, but I feel like it saved my life because when I did go in and I talked to them about it, what I wanted to do, which was find a different way to support them, I was able to actually we were able to create together something for me to do for them in an online capacity. I knew it was possible. And we started to do that. And that opened my time up, meaning I became my first time into entrepreneurship by being my own boss, setting my hours, setting my time to work for them. And then looking outwards, like, what can I do now? And I told my husband, like, literally, I said, hang on, because I'm literally going to hit the ground running. And I started going out to networking events and meeting other women, meeting other people, and creating, surrounding myself with people who were doing something different with their lives to give me inspiration and hope that there was something more than just what I had been doing for most of my life. And then I learned about self-development, which became a passion of mine. And in the going through the self-development journey, I learned to love myself because I didn't really fully love the person that I was. I didn't feel that I was enough. I didn't think I was worthy because of my past growing up, to a mother and a father. My mom and my dad never married. So I had that strike against me, because I was born out of wedlock. My mom is white. My dad was Black. That was another strike that I felt at the time was against me. I grew up, I was born in the early 60s. So there was still the civil rights movement. My mom was pregnant basically with me when she was here in the US with my father. Segregation was still big. And my mom was brave and she stood out. It wasn't like she would fit in. She stood out. So it was like, the bravery of that still kind of blows my mind. But from that, I felt like I had that strike, then growing up in social housing, I felt I wasn't enough and I didn't belong. And that there were all these strikes. Yeah.
We're going to come back to that at the end. Okay. I just want to move to Martina, and then we'll come back and we'll get more deeper in. Okay. But I want everybody to have a chance.
So of course. Yeah.
Okay. So Martina, what was it like for you? What was that break?
So I think, with any break, things sort of build up, it's a build up. And it was a 17-year relationship with my ex-husband. And, if I had something to tell younger women is don't ignore the red flags at the beginning. And so I grew up with a family where my mom and stepfather kind of swept things under the rug. So I continued that pattern. So many, many differences in our relationship, differences in work ethic. I was a real type A workaholic, and his work ethic was different. Differences, we had a business together in our business philosophies. And so I think one of the most important things I know now today is that it's really important to share the same values, to share the same ethics with the person that you're with, that you're on the same page, and that there aren't differences in those core, extremely important values. But what I found myself doing more and more, we moved here to LA from Miami in 2013, is we moved to the suburbs and the Pacific Palisades. And it's sort of this American dream place for families with children. And I found myself pretending to everyone, the moms of the other kids in elementary school, that everything was perfect, like everything was hunky-dory. And that's the other thing, is don't pretend, because it's really lonely to pretend. And what I realized, the last 5 years, I was really trying to save the marriage with marriage counseling, but it was like everyone here was saying, it's a very lonely place to be in a place where you feel like you're the only person really trying to make things work. And finally, I decided that I could no longer pretend, because my daughters were now 11 and 13 when I decided to split. And it was my ex-husband's derogatory remarks to me in front of my girls and their friends that were the straw that broke the camel's back, that it was no longer acceptable to be spoken in a way, especially in front of my girls, who, what is their role model is their mom and their dad speaking to each other. So that was pretty much the straw that broke its camel's back, and it was the best decision of my life. And, when somebody, like I knew already for probably most of the 17 years that this is not my person. This is not the person that's my soulmate. It's not somebody that I really respect, and so the signs were all there on the wall. But as women, we're always trying to fix things. So it took a while to unravel. So yeah, the straw that broke its camel's back is not being spoken to in a way that is a bad role model to our children.
I love that. You ladies are all so inspirational. You all have so much power and strength, and I love what you bring to every day and to my personal life. Knowing you all, I feel like honored to be sitting amongst you. So for me, I was in a very abusive relationship, but that wasn't really what broke the the camel's back. For me, it was having the ability to stay by myself. When I looked back on my life, I was always somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, or I was always somebody's something, but I was never just me. And I wanted to know what that was like, to find that time to explore that for myself. And I remember having the day to myself and having no idea what I wanted to do, what I enjoyed doing, and I was just stumped. And I think that whole day was really just about, well, can I do? I really just had no idea who I was. I was really left a shell of a person, because everybody that I had surrounded myself with all those years, I was a little piece of them, and a little piece of them, but I felt like I just had no substance, and I wanted to find out where my life was going to go at that point. So that's what was really the straw on the camel's back. I was like, who am I? What do I do? Where do I go? What do I really want to be? So that was that. So everybody has shared so many amazing things. So we are going to touch a little bit on relationships, because there's also that synopsis here where people were all in a relationship where people spoke to us like we were less than. And I was spoken to like that in my home growing up. So I saw nothing wrong with that. it was very common for other people to speak to me poorly, you know, because that happens in my own home. So I want to touch on those relationships. We all have had bad relationships. And Leslie, if you want to finish that story, because it was beautiful. I didn't mean to cut you short. It was beautiful. You know, I wanted to hear more about your mom. Then wherever you guys want to share more about other areas of your life that were, because all of us came online. Some of us had that, you know, imposter syndrome or that camera fear, you know, so whatever you like to share on, I'd love for you to do that. Okay. So, CJ, we're going to start with you on this one.
All right. For me, I think you really made something come clear to me. Like, I grew up watching my dad literally beat the shit out of my mom, like talk to all of us. I mean, sit us down at the table, and he was a raging alcoholic. So there was never a nice moment, but it was like Jekyll and Hyde. He and my mom coached Pee Wee baseball, and they would pile all these kids from the community into the back of the truck. And after the games, he'd be high-fiving them and taking them to the ice cream joint and getting everybody ice cream. And then he would come home and we'd sit down at the table, and he'd just lose his mind. And it's like, I watched him do that to my mom. I spent probably 10 years of my life making excuses to get up out of my bed at night because I could hear him beating the crap out of my mom, and I thought I could save her. And I just wanted him to leave. I just prayed to God every day, just let him leave. It'll be so much better. And yes, you know, he left and it was a struggle. But then I think back at, you know, I started dating a man, well, a guy when I was 16, got engaged when I was 18, got married when I was 19. And he literally was my dad incarnate. Like, he was an alcoholic. He would go out and do all these things. And he was, you know, this nice guy on the outside, and everybody in the community loved him. He came from money, and everybody told me, just be happy with what you have. He can't be that bad. And literally, I would get stalked. I was an outside salesperson, and I would have my day timer in my briefcase, and I obviously would have all these names of people that I cold called during the day. And I would come home, and he would pull out my binder, and he would go through it and ask me, who's this, who's this, who's this? And, you know, I finally had enough, and I'm like, I can't do this. And I remember clearly one day going home, and I just was like, I'm done. I went home. He was home during the day because he worked on a farm. He was home during the day. His truck was in the driveway. I pulled my car into the garage, and I remember him leaving the house and going out and pulling his car in front of the garage. And I thought, well, that's odd. Well, when he came back in, we had weapons in the house. And when he came back in, he was like, just went off the rails. And I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. Our kids were at daycare. We had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old at the time. And I said, I can't do this. I'm out. I'm leaving. And we literally fought over a 22. And I remember just being scared for my life and thinking, this is it. And being told, you know, if I can't have you, no one's going to have you. And I called his parents. And I remember his dad answering the phone, and they were strict Catholics. And I said, you either need to come get me, come get him, because one of us is going to end up dead or in jail. And I remember it like just pierced me to the core. He said, your marriage vows are till death do you part. And if that's what it comes to, then that's what it comes to. And I was like, what is wrong with this man? You know, and so finally he ended up going, locking himself in a bedroom, and I took his truck and I just left. And I was like, I'm done. I went and I filed for divorce that day. And I was like, this is not how it's supposed to be. And I thought in my head, I'm going to change the mold. I'm not going to allow my children to be raised that way and grown up, you know, treated like that and see that. And I thought, like you said, you know, I saw that with my parents at home, and I thought at first, it's no big deal. This is just how it is. But when that happened, I was like, this is not just how this is. This is wrong. Cannot be the way that it's supposed to be. And so for me, it's just a matter of choosing every single day to, you know, I have 4 daughters, 3 sons, and it's every single day. Would I want my daughters to allow a man to treat them like that? Absolutely not. So I feel like it's my duty and my responsibility. Yes, they're all grown and they're all out on their own, but it's still my responsibility to make sure that they see their own value and their own worth, and to never allow themselves to be made to feel like they're nothing or to be spoken like that to. And it's just every single woman needs to know their own value within themselves. It's not dependent on anybody else.
I agree wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly. I love some of these are so emotional. I feel like I'm in those places with you as you're telling these stories. Okay, Leslie, I'm going to ping back over to you so everybody's not always being last, and then I'm going to go up again. So, Leslie.
Yeah, no, so yeah, I know I could be long-winded at times. I just got really passionate about the story. Yeah, no, so really, yeah, just like you were saying, it can bring you right back to those, even though you might not have been in those particular moments, but I can feel, having maybe similar background to both of you and just feeling that emotion coming from you about how it made you feel and again how we go through life. So I think I'd like to really just segue into that relationship piece because I think because of my own background with my mom, it's not really choosing the right kind of guys for her, because I think really it came down to self-worth even for my mom, and her bringing in an abusive man into the home. And for me to actually have seen that and then to grow up thinking I'm never going to let that happen to myself, because that was how I felt at the time, like I'll never let that be my reality. And instead finding myself in that reality with someone who wasn't physically abusive at the time, but he was verbally abusive. And from what I learned, that can turn into a physical altercation. I think for me, that really just was undermining my own ability to believe in myself even more. And I started realizing that somehow I had the strength in me to know that I cannot allow myself to continue down this path, and bringing myself out of that. And you're right, it's like, how do we even just know we're worthy and deserving enough of better, especially when we're living with someone who is telling us that we're not worth much, that we only deserve what we've got with them, that we'll never get better, or no one will love us the way they do. And I remember hearing those words and responding back saying, I hope not, because I never want to be with someone who loves me the way that you do, because this is not love. So I just wanted to touch on that. That was really what I wanted to share. I think that is so powerful what you ladies are sharing today, especially, there are women out there who still are living this. They're still living this. And if we can inspire them to just say, you know what? Oh, okay, I feel exactly how you're telling me you felt, and this is how you got out of it. It's just being able to say, yeah, what I did was I said one day, this is it. This is enough. And like what you did, CJC, you said, this is enough. Now you had a physical altercation, and thank goodness that it didn't result in, leaving 2 young children without their mother. But I am really glad that you were able to find the courage to get away. That's the main thing that I would like anyone listening to this to take away, that you found the courage to step away from that. So that's what I wanted to share.
If I was there, I'd be giving you a big hug, Mama. Kyla, what about you? I know that you're a big advocate for domestic violence. So obviously you've been in that situation in some way or another, either verbal or physical. So what was that like for you?
So for me, I was so against divorce. I was so against anything like that. But what I wasn't against was being treated like crap. So I wasn't thinking correctly, right? So when I got into a relationship with the man that I married, who's actually, he wasn't the worst guy I ever dated, but he definitely wasn't a good guy, at all. And so my mindset was make it work, make it work, make it work, instead of making sure that this was a good person for me and in my future. So when I was faced with the situation of having to get a divorce or trying to make it work with this completely dysfunctional person who we did not have the same values of wanting to have, of course they said they wanted to have a loving family and this and that, but you can't do that when you're threatening to beat people up. You can't do that when, you won't even take the trash out. And so for my whole life, I grew up saying, I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have that. And that's exactly what I ended up in. And I wrote about it in my book, Shattering the Stigma. I called my chapter The Pacts to Single Motherhood, because, you know, it was a play on word, the path. But I made pacts to myself, and my pacts were, I'm not getting divorced. I'm going to have the best family for my children. And so as much as I wanted it, I wasn't properly equipped to have that. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't grow up with the correct boundaries. And so I was allowing these people to come into my life that never should have been in my life. I never should have been in relationships with them. And so I just want to say that, like, you know, we don't know, you know, we want things, but we have to know how to get those things. And it's not easy. Like, sometimes it takes having these constant chaoses pop up in your life to realize, okay, I am allowing things that are not good for me into my life, because some things we can't prevent, but I could have prevented every single one of those men from being in my life.
I love that. It's so true. The choices we make. Okay, we're gonna move to the middle, little Ashley, and then we're gonna head back up to Martina. So Ashley, what about you, my honey?
Yeah, so reflecting through this all and thinking about it, like me and my daughter's father, like we were completely toxic to each other. And there was stuff that his traits were, and then there was stuff that I had my traits. And of course, the baggages of the pain and the traumas that I've been carrying myself was coming into the relationship. So there would be like accusations, whether it was from him or me, the fighting, the communication, again, like no boundaries. My family, my parents, they always kept their stuff between themselves. Like they never brought it out in front of us. But one thing that I could come from there was like not proper communication, not like in a bad way, but like even communicating with each other. Even as a child, I remember like things, oh, because I said so kind of thing. And I say that to my daughter, and then I'm trying to stop myself. But the communication, the boundaries, and with that too, like we had a stage in our relationship before my daughter was born. It was like the drinking, going out, doing this, doing that. And it was like the fun lifestyle. But then a child is born, and, you know, you can still have that fun lifestyle, but his wasn't really changing. And it was backlashing with me. And then I was getting upset, but then I was the one that was the bad one. Right? So it was hard. It was definitely hard because I really wanted to have that family again, like no, we weren't married, but like the separation, like you have to be together. I want us to be together. I want my daughter to have this family. And when I really started to look at what was going on, and I was just like, we both mutually separated, but it was the best thing ever. But like, it was hard. It was hard because even though we separated and we knew it was the best thing, I still felt so much blame that I couldn't give my daughter this. And then things going back to my limiting beliefs of like, you know, how are you going to make this work? You can't make nothing work. Everything, just the proof started showing. So it was really hurtful, but again, it was very transformative because that's when I began to changing my life around. Sorry, I want to hold back the tears.
Gotta let it go. It's all right to be who we are today. All right, Martina.
God, everyone, it's pretty emotional listening to everyone, but it's also, I think, shows how common the thread is between females, right? And what every female goes through. And so what I was thinking is, at the end of my 17-year relationship, I was thinking to myself, what can I do to stop attracting the wrong person? Because clearly this is the wrong person and has been for almost 2 decades. And what I was saying to myself is, I never again, I don't want this kind of relationship again. And so what Ashley was kind of saying is, it takes looking at ourselves, you know, not just looking at the other person. Everyone has their triggers. He has triggers, I have triggers, right? And what I realized is, getting back to the values, is I realized that I was following society's and my family's expectation of who I should be, what I should do, what work I should do. I became a financial controller. My dad was an accountant, just following what other people wanted me to do rather than what I wanted to do. And so during those final years, I was really thinking about, well, what does Martina love to do? And I remember as a child really loving horses and animals and being out in nature and taking trains and buses and walking to 1.5 hours to riding stables. And so I realized that I had given up all those pieces of myself all of my life, like it was sort of like a 30-year detour that and also evaluating other really important values like the honesty, being ethical, the hardworking things that are so important to me. So as a result of looking at myself after I divorced, I did meet the love of my life, Dwayne, and we've been together for 5.5 years. And I wouldn't say he's just like me, but we're really, really similar. I love his work ethic. I really respect everything he does, everything that comes out of his mouth. It's completely different relationship than I had before. And it all started with evaluating myself and owning up to what was my part in the relationship, right? That didn't work, because obviously it takes two to tango. And sort of, I've learned now not to sweep things under the rug. Dwayne's actually really great at communicating, maybe sometimes even better than me. And he reminds me that it's important to, if we want to say something, just say it, right? If rather than us as women expecting the man to read our minds or vice versa, I think it's really important to communicate. So it's been an incredible journey for me. I do love saying that there are happy endings, and these past 5.5 years have been the most incredible in my life. And it's wonderful to have found a man that I really feel such an affinity to and love for.
I love that. I love that. I identify with all of you on so many levels in the relationships, in your lives, in your feelings, and the emotions that you were going through. And maybe it's just women, maybe we really are from Mars and men are from Venus or whatever. I don't know. But for me, I think it was like a boundary issue. There were no boundaries in my home, so I didn't know how to impose those boundaries on someone else and say this is enough. My mother was a lovely woman, don't get me wrong. She was a single family mom, but she was abused growing up, and there was nothing to stop that. She didn't know how to accept love because she was never given love, so she didn't know how to give it, except for being there and working and giving us what we needed. But on an emotional level, that's not very satisfying to a child. So I had those in my relationships. I had a very physically abusive, I married my childhood sweetheart, and like CJ, I told him I was leaving, and I woke up with a phone cord around my neck because if he couldn't have me, nobody else was gonna. And we hit every wall in my house that night. There was just blood everywhere. And I just, I wrote about this in my book. I just heard my mother in my head saying there are no victims, there are just volunteers, that I was allowing this. And my heart just, I could feel it for the first time in a long time. And I said, okay, enough, I'm ready, and that was really what it took. And then finding my way back was just really looking at the trajectory where my life was going if I continued to make the choices. And for me, learning how to trust myself again to make good choices, because I didn't trust my decisions with the people that I was bringing into my life. When someone said, let's go out, I was young after my first husband, but I was afraid to get back out there again. And I stayed alone for a while after that. I did meet my now husband back then, shortly afterwards, but I wouldn't date him because I didn't trust my decisions, and it took a while for me to feel like I could make good decisions when it came to people or what I wanted or what I deserved. And until I really felt like I could love myself, when I was able to do that inner work that everybody talks about and saying, okay, you did this and you did this, this was your part in this, and I could forgive them for their part. I really started to forgive myself, you know, because I allowed all these things into my life, and these people, though they were choices I made. Nobody really could do anything to me unless I allowed that. And that was a very rude awakening, because I had been blaming people for years. So, you know, it's your fault I'm miserable, you know. But we always say for every finger pointing forward, there's 4 coming back. So I had to look at those 4 fingers, you know. So trusting ourselves again. So we're running out of time, but showing up online and really trusting yourself again, and stepping out of that comfort zone every day, because we're all entrepreneurs here, and every day we have to interact with new people and trust ourselves in our business, in our marriages, and the decisions we're making. If you could tell other women anything right now that would that you feel would benefit them when they have to make these decisions, or anything like that, what would you tell them? Leslie, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, I think that I would tell them that you're worthy no matter what. Don't let anyone else tell you your worth, because no one else is qualified to do that. Only you are. And so when you want something for your life, and that includes relationships, and that's including all relationships, people that you surround yourself with, make sure that the people that you're surrounding yourself with actually have your back. They truly have your back. Like this community of women that we're involved with, that we have each other. And so having that is, I think, probably one of the biggest things that's helped me, is having community. So surround yourself with other people in your life that you know will support you. And again, making sure that when it comes to your worth, that no one else is qualified to make the decision of your worthiness, because, you know, I know that we all know this, that we're all worthy because we're here. You see JC Boyd, you know, she touched on that. We're worthy and deserving because we're here.
I love that. I love that. I love you, ladies. Okay, Martina, what would you tell these wonderful women out there today?
You're not defined by your past. You are not defined by your past. And we have in our minds the ability to change the narrative and to decide in the morning to wake up, if we've woken up on the wrong side of the bed, to change the narrative and to do an activity like cleaning the kitchen. You know, I like to use bleach, or going for a walk, to change that hamster wheel in the mind. And the other thing is, for younger women especially, do not ignore the red flags. A red flag is a red flag, right? I'm wearing a red sweater. If something presents yourself as something that you don't like, it doesn't fall within the values, they're non-negotiable values, bye-bye.
I love that. Ashley, honey?
Yeah, so I would say, honestly, it's all about finding yourself, your self-worth, working on yourself, doing that inner mindset work is so key on this journey, and finding yourself 100%. So next thing with that too is taking those action steps, whether it's something small each day that's just going to push you through that resistance, because life happens. You can start feeling stuck, overwhelmed, but the gold prize is when you just keep going, take that small little step, whatever it is, and you will find yourself getting out of your comfort zone. You'll find that everything's aligning, working out for you. So take those small little steps, whatever it is.
Great job, Ashley. CJ, honey?
I think for me, it would be, taking personal accountability, being responsible and being personally accountable for everything that's happened, whether or not you were a victim or whatever, you had your part in it. So taking accountability and giving yourself permission to not allow that to define you, and not wallow in the fact that that happened to you. It doesn't mean that that's all you're worth, in the rest of your life, and just giving yourself permission to want something different, to be something different, to go for whatever it is you want, to just, be accountable to yourself and give self permission.
I love that. Kyla, what about you, honey?
So I would like to say never stop learning. There's always something new to learn, and especially in every situation and every little chaos that's popping up, instead of blaming people, you should be asking, like, what can I be learning from this? What is the lesson that I can learn? And I'm actually writing a little bit about it in my book that's coming out soon, but boundaries, having boundaries. And it's one thing like to say boundaries, but I think like for people that they're not there yet, I think it's I like to lay out 7 areas where you can look at your boundaries and understand, like, are they working for me or are they working against me? And so those 7 areas that I'm always laying out are physical. So that's like physical space, physical boundaries, anything physically, like looking at that and making sure that you have like correct and healthy boundaries, and learning about emotional intelligence as well, to see, like, is this the type of boundaries that I grew up with, learning, because like for me it was like passive aggressiveness. Like I learned that from my mom, and I obviously didn't want to be like that. I didn't really think that I was being passive aggressive, but when you stop and, like you said, look at your part in things, there's going to be a part, and it's not always going to be pretty. So taking accountability for that. Okay. And so physical, and then emotional, how do you feel? And passive aggressiveness might fall under that. Intellectual, again, always learning, and that's how you gain experience and wisdom. Time boundaries. Are you making time for what's important to you? Are you giving all of your time away to other people? Financial, if you're not paying your bills and everything, you're not gonna have that's not good boundaries to have, and it's going to definitely roll into your other boundaries. And then so I think the last one is sexual boundaries, because those are important, especially a lot of us have laid out situations where we didn't have, the best boundaries, and that might be one of them. So, and I don't know. I don't want to be like, get too into it, but those are the 7 areas that I like to talk about getting familiar with. And like what Ashley was saying, really defining yourself in all those 7 areas and making sure that they're all working together and they're not impeding each other.
I love that. All right, ladies, I'm going to ask you to stay at the end of this. I'm just going to add my 2 cents in, and we'll end the taping, but I just want to share a few minutes with you, if that's okay. So, because I am a spiritual person, I believe in something greater than myself. I believe that God does not make mistakes. And I believe that everybody, the Mary Morrissey always says, nobody has your thumbprint but you. There's only one you. So I think that if there's only one like us, we have to be pretty special, and that we shouldn't allow anybody to tell us that we're not, and stands in our power, because we deserve those things. So guys, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I love you even more than I did an hour ago, if that's possible. But I'm so grateful to all of you for always willing to step out of that comfort zone to be able to help another person. I think that really says a lot about who you are at your core. Right. So thank you again. I'm going to shut off the recording, and we hope this helped everyone.